All right, I want you to have a swig of your Coca-Cola.
Good.
Because we're about to do a rapid-fire Real Biz challenge. Are you ready?
Okay. Okay.
You've had your Coca-Cola,
Right.
You're ready to go. All right, are you an Apple or a Samsung man?
What that you said earlier, you were talking about Samsung. You mentioned the Samsung 85-inch television screen, but you know an awful lot about the company. You don't own the shares, do you?
All right, I want you to have a swig of your Coca-Cola.
Good.
Because we're about to do a rapid-fire Real Biz challenge. Are you ready?
Okay. Okay.
You've had your Coca-Cola,
Right.
You're ready to go. All right, are you an Apple or a Samsung man?
I'll show you my. This is my cell phone.
How do you tweet on that thing?
Alexander, it's falling apart as a matter of fact. No, Alexander Graham Bell gave me this.
With your
actually.
room key in the middle,
Yeah, right.
which is black, by the way,
Yeah.
so no one knows where you're actually
Yeah.
staying, which is good. Alexander Graham Bell gave you the phone.
That's.
So how do you tweet?
I don't. I've had 5 tweets and another person did it for me.
Another person took care of it.
Yeah.
What we've seen with the slowdown with the coronavirus, because Apple is one of the companies that has said it's going to have an impact, not only with the stores that they've closed there, with the behavior of Chinese customers, but also what happens with the supply chain.
Supply chain, sure.
How do you read through any of that? What are you hearing? Do you know more than we do on that front?
No, I don't know one thing more. I may see Tim Cook at the annual meeting. I see him in Sun Valley once a year. No, I don't think I've placed a phone call to Tim Cook in 2 or 3 years or a minute. I mean, all kinds of things are going to happen to Apple over the next 10 years. The real question is, what is the degree of pervasiveness and strength of that product 5 or 10 years from now? And I don't think of Apple as a stock. I think it's our 3rd largest business.
It's also a high-flying technology company. It's one that's been at the forefront, but you've said in the past you didn't buy it because it's a technology company.
I think it's a consumer product. In fact, I think I said this on the program a couple of years ago. I mean, obviously it's a consumer product company that uses technology, but we've got a lot of products that use technology at Berkshire. But it's an incredible company. and I should have appreciated it earlier.
There's a question that came in from, I guess the handle is GPG. This is a question that came in on Twitter, and the writer asks, you've said that you can do fair value estimates of companies you follow at any time in your head. So please do one now for Apple. What went wrong with your estimate for IBM, and how is that miscalculation different than for Apple?
IBM's an entirely different business than Apple. I mean, Apple doesn't resemble IBM anymore. It resembles See's Candy in a way more. I mean, it is a incredibly useful product to people that grows more useful as the number of people are involved. I mean, it's really interesting. We call them smartphones. If you go back and look at the old telephone, that was an incredible, useful product. It changed my mother's life and my dad's life. It changed lives in every way, and they took a long time to become pervasive, and it was very expensive initially, but it changed the world. And the smartphone is part of hundreds and hundreds of millions of people's lives in all aspects of their lives. It's used as all kinds of utility. It's a consumer product.
One finally stuck?
What, pardon me?
One finally stuck? You're actually
yeah, absolutely. No, my flip phone is permanently gone. The number's been changed to my new phone. Wow. Yeah.
That's impressive.
I mean, you're looking at an 89-year-old guy that's barely beginning to be with it.
What do you like best about the phone? And what do you like least?
Well, I don't use all its facilities like most people. I mean, most people are living their lives around it, and I use it as a phone.
As a phone and nothing
I
else.
use it as a phone.
What that you said earlier, you were talking about Samsung. You mentioned the Samsung 85-inch television screen, but you know an awful lot about the company. You don't own the shares, do you?
I don't own them, and Berkshire doesn't own them now, but Berkshire has owned Samsung. It doesn't get reported in our 13F. I think 13F is just apply to domestic, so it actually hasn't shown up. But I think I'm right on that. I'm 99% sure. And so we bought some, when Samsung was at, at about a million won, you got to divide that by something over 1,000. We bought a reasonable amount. We did sell it when it went up. It's higher than this now. It went up to 1.8 million or something. I think it's around 2 million, 3 or 4. The yuan went in our favor a little bit too, so we did a little bit better in dollars.
What, I mean, I don't think of you as, in the past you have bought some South Korean stocks, I think. That was a while ago. Why were you looking at Samsung at this point?
It was very, very cheap. They had a lot of cash. They hadn't done much on buying in their stock, but they had talked about it. But it was just very cheap. It's a big, strong, good company.
Yeah, I remember you buying a South Korean retailer, was it, years ago?
Yeah, there was a time when I bought a whole bunch of little ones.
Right about the time when we traveled.
Yeah, exactly. And the Korean market was very cheap. I mean, ridiculously cheap after the 1998 when they had all kinds of troubles. And there were a lot of bargains in Korea.
When you say a reasonable amount, I mean, for me, that's a different number for my holdings than it would be for you. Are we talking north of $1 billion?
Well, we probably made in the hundreds of millions someplace. But,
you made that much on the transaction?
That's my memory. It would kind of been 500 million or 400. I don't remember exactly.
He said, do you plan on adding to your Apple position throughout 2019? And I just want to also bring up a tweet from Jim Cramer. He tweeted back on February 5th, does an Apple trade like Berkshire is back buying? I spoke with Cramer about it, and he said, look, I don't know anything. It's just all of a sudden the stock's really picking up. It's almost as if. So are you interested at lower levels?
I'm always interested in lower levels in a number of stocks we own. There's some where we really can't go over 10%, and generally I don't like to go over 10% because it complicates life quite a bit. With banks, it actually throws us into the bank holding company ground. So there are stocks that I would buy that we own 9 and a fraction percent, and I actually may be selling a little bit because they're repurchasing their shares, and I don't want to drift over 10%. But Apple, I don't see myself selling. The lower it goes, the better I like it, obviously.
I mean, Apple is not one of those 10% stocks. Don't you own about 5% of the shares?
About 5%.
So is this a situation where you have been buying since it came so much lower at the end of December?
It's really not back to where it may have briefly, very briefly got there, but if it were cheaper, we'd be buying it. We aren't buying it here.
There was another question that came in. This is T91 from Umar Zubair, who said Apple decelerated share repurchases from around $20 billion in the third quarter to around $8 billion in the fourth quarter, just when the stock price went down by about 30%. In fact, Apple repurchased 0 shares in December of 2018 when the stock hit a 52-week low. What are your thoughts on Apple's repurchase deceleration?
Well, and Apple has said publicly that they've repeated it, that their goal is to reach what they call a cash neutral position, where their debt is roughly equal to the cash. I think that would take 130 billion or so to get there, but of course they could make some acquisitions. On the other hand, they're earning a lot more than their dividends, so that number goes up. Mentally, I say to myself, we're very likely, and a lot of things could change this with them, and the lower the price goes, the better it gets, but they should be at 4 billion shares probably in maybe 3 years, and so our 5% would become something over 6% at that point, and I like that prospect. And then we might buy some ourselves, who knows, it depends on the price. But they will buy a lot more stock if it's cheaper than if it's higher, and you know, it's just simple math. We're better off if in the next 3 years Apple is cheaper. The smartphone is part of hundreds and hundreds of millions of people's lives in all aspects of their lives. It's used for.
Why were you looking at Samsung at this point?
It was very, very cheap. They had a lot of cash. they hadn't done much on buying in their stock, but they talked about it. But it was just very cheap. It's a big, strong, good company. Apple, I don't see myself selling. The lower it goes, the better I like it, obviously.